the discovery of the civilization, the kingdom of Ebla, answered so many critics of the Bible. A critic often said that the priestly code, the moral legislation taught in the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, and later by Moses, could not have been written by Moses. Why? Because it wasn't until the first half of the Persian period, in other words, about 538 to 331 before Christ, or some 1,000 years after Moses, that legislation, moral legislation, priestly codes developed to such a high level of morality. So the critics said that Moses, who lived in 1400 BC, could not have written the priestly codes and the moral legislation because there was not time for it to evolve to that level. Dr. Robert Pfeiffer, an outspoken critic for years of the Old Testament, said the priestly code, like all other legislation, notwithstanding its deliberate timelessness and fictitious Mosaic background, bears the earmarks of its age. In other words, the age of Moses, 1400 BC? No. The age of the first half of the Persian period, 538 to about 331 BC. So what they said was, at the time of Moses, he couldn't have written the Pentateuch because at that time, the moral legislation, priestly codes, had not developed to such a high level. But in the discoveries of Ebla, they showed that all that was possible. They found in the 2 languages, legislation, priestly codes, moral dictums, almost as high as the Mosaic code. They were written in stone. People used them. They taught them. And what you have to understand, they said Moses couldn't have written something like that because he lived 1,000 years before society developed to that level. But boy, God often drives the point home because now in Ebla they discovered, now 1,000 years before Moses, very high levels of codes and legislation. You know, they even had it listed right down that if you committed this crime, they'd list out the punishments for different levels of the crime. They said that never could have happened until 2,000 years later. I thank God for those committed to the discipline of archaeology, for their patience and their commitment to finding truth. God has confirmed His word, where you and I can hold it in our hands and say, "Thus saith the Lord." And that's why once I trusted Christ as Savior and Lord, it became a guide for me.